how's it going? My name is Chris Short, the Executive Director of the New Paltz Regional Chamber of Commerce. Today, Pattern for Progress has asked me to moderate today's panel on marketing. Today, the big thing about marketing is about storytelling and branding. And right now, it's ever so important to have the right messaging during tough times. So businesses are really limited right now. We're pared down to essential remote functions. And a lot of organizations are actually experiencing financial hardship. So this has made the marketing fields is kind of uprooted where we are when it comes to marketing and all of our online communications. So most businesses are making tough choices about what to do with their limited budgets. And as we tighten our belt, we're looking at what those economic implications are in the future. So today we're going to talk to the topic of marketing. One of the first things that people actually cut is a marketing budget. And that could be the right move or the wrong move. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually talk to three amazing panelists today. I have Tom Langan, the president of Talex Media, with us today, Katy Dwyer, the president of Katy Dwyer Designs, and Katy Haynes, founder of Haynes Marketing Media. Thanks for everybody being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah.
So Katy Dwyer. Katy Dwyer Designs. Could you give us a little bit about what your agency does, where you started, and what kind of work you do?
Absolutely. So Katy Dwyer Design was started in 2009. We've been through all sorts of different iterations, but I can tell you that what we do now is we work with mostly local, some national brands, and we help make brands more powerful, profitable, and lovable. We do that through brand strategy, graphic design, website design, PR and communications. We help a lot of great local brands. We work with service organizations, nonprofit organizations, professional services, all sorts of different industries to really just help get their name out there, create a consistent and lovable brand, essentially, and make sure that our customers are getting good engagement with their own customers.
Excellent. And second up, Katy Haynes, the founder of Haynes Marketing Media. Katy, thanks for having this conversation with us today. Why don't you share a little bit about your business?
So Haynes Marketing and Media started less than a year ago, but I've been freelancing for a long time. I help businesses manage their online presence. That's through social media, website enhancement, SEO, photography, graphic design, and just help businesses really figure out exactly how to utilize the digital marketing of today's world. And I help small businesses, mostly small businesses in the Hudson Valley. And then I also do a bunch of other things. I'm on Sparrow's Nest Charity. I'm on the board of directors there. I actually was helping deliver meals today because, what else am I going to do right now? So I'm dressed down, representing the nest. And, I just think that volunteering is also so important. I support nonprofits as well. So, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And Tom Langan, president of Talex Media. Tom is a two-time Emmy Award nominated director. Tom, why don't you share a little bit about your background and what you do?
Sure. Thanks, Chris. So I have a career in production spanning almost 20 years at this point. You can probably tell by the gray in the beard. And my background's in television and commercial production. A few years ago, I decided to start looking to shift my focus away from that side of the business. I still do some work in television and commercial production, but my focus really now is on helping businesses and organizations local to where I live here in the Hudson Valley develop better content for their businesses with a focus on storytelling and narrative content to really help businesses connect better with their audiences and help them share with their customers really the why of what they do and how they do it.
Excellent. It looks like we have a rock star staff here of marketing and branding professionals. So this is going to be a really good conversation today. With what Tom just mentioned, I'm going to start with Katy Dwyer. Right now, the big push is for storytelling in marketing. And with a lot of different brands, they struggle with trying to figure out what their voice is in a noisy digital space. So how do you see storytelling and branding, combined with actually the marketing aspect, really enhance a business right now during the times that we're in?
Well, in the times that we're in right now, the most important thing you can do is digitally. Obviously people can't come into your shop, they can't come into your offices. So right now, your really only option is to speak with people digitally. And doing so, it's a great opportunity to tell your story, to connect with them. Most importantly, you want to make sure you understand who your audience is, because right now, especially, you want to make sure that you're talking to the right people, that you're telling the right story, that you're talking about what makes you unique. What are the benefits of still working with you? A lot of people are afraid to go out. They are trying to order everything online, and how can I get stuff here where I am? Telling your story. What are you doing right now? How are you making things safe for people, for your staff, for your customers? And really, what are the benefits of working with you as a business right now? That's how you need to tell your story.
Excellent. Katy, Haynes, when you're using storytelling with your clients, how do you approach those conversations when you sit down with a client and they're looking to either rebrand or kind of to what Katy was saying before about, telling those stories of what you're actually doing? How do you approach that with your clients?
I think that it's easy to start with making sure that their elevator pitch is a clear and focused message, so they know exactly what they're saying. I feel like many small businesses feel like they're just so entrenched in everyday business that they don't think that much about how to really speak about themselves. So I really try to help them develop that elevator pitch, that this is who I am and this is why I'm doing it. Because like Katy said, people are now, you can only find out what businesses are doing through hearing from them through their digital voice. So making sure that that voice is clear, but then also making sure that it's human, I think is so important. And because people want to buy from small businesses because of the business owner, because of the business itself, because of that feeling that you get when you go into that small business. So how can you translate that now in digitally?
Definitely. Tom, I know there's a lot of different stats out there about video. The phrase I use when I teach is video is eating the internet right now. And the stats are anywhere between 80 to 90% of everything that's moving into the near future is going to be video based. So how do you use video with your clients? How do you get into that storytelling aspect? And what are some of the tips and tricks that really kind of drive home that human side that Katy was talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I mean, I think the human side is so important. It's much more important to share who you are and what you represent rather than information, right? People have a tendency, I think, especially in a local market or the smaller businesses that I also work with around here, have a tendency to want to err on the side of information heavy content. Providing things like phone numbers, website addresses, sales specials, coupon codes, things like that. And I don't think that should be the focus. I think the focus should be much more of a give and thinking about the content you create and the video you create for your business in terms of sharing yourself and who you are. Something I say all the time, just to echo what Katy Haynes was just saying about why people shop locally, why they choose to patronize smaller businesses. It is relationship based, right? It's an emotional decision. People make purchasing decisions based on emotion. And the best way to compete with big box stores or Amazon or internet delivery service options is to develop relationships with your customers. And the way to develop relationships, just like in any other part of your life, is to be open and honest about who you are and what you represent.
Absolutely. I think that the human element right now, with the way we're living in the digital space, the human element is really, we're finding out how important it really is, right? We were kind of cruising through, everything was going great, and recent events have pretty much taken marketing and flipped it on its head. And a lot of businesses are struggling with how to pivot from, maybe a traditional mindset into this new digital format. So, Katy, Dwyer, question for you. How would you describe branding and why is it important? Because a lot of people right now are struggling with the idea of a marketing budget and where to spend those dollars. So how would you describe that importance to the clients that you work with to keep those initiatives and those strategies moving forward?
Well, your brand is your personality. Your brand is what customers see in you. Why are your customers buying from you? That essentially is your brand. And right now, if you're not putting your time and your effort into your branding, you're letting everyone around you dictate what your brand is, which right now, I think what especially local businesses need is a little bit of control. They need to know that they have their foot on the gas of how their business is going to run. And the best way to do that is to continue branding and marketing yourself.
Katy, Haynes, a question to you. When it comes to the importance of marketing, where is the toughest part of that conversation? When you put together a strategy for, say, a new client, outside of these times, where is the tipping point where you get them to buy into your ideas, and how do you drive that message home when we're talking about the human side and behind the scenes and the why that makes people tick? How do you approach those conversations?
So I think that, when I'm talking to a potential new client or somebody that's been a client for a while, and and I see a new vision or a new direction that I think that they should be taking so that they can really grab hold of the audience. I think that, for me, it's just, I just demonstrate examples of when it's worked before. So it takes a lot of back end research for me on my end of knowing similar brands and taking the time to do my own homework of if I have a roofer who's a client and I see that there's some different way that there could be marketing that would benefit a roofer that I've seen being successful in other businesses, I just use other examples to help develop new strategies. So, and I think that it's important just to think outside of the box of really what is it that people also aren't doing, and how can you drive home the message that you are who you are more than you are what you are. And I think that that's really important, and being able to guide the business to explain really who it is that they're doing and why it is what they're doing, and really being able to get that why message through is so important, and it's useful and it helps. But I think that some businesses are hesitant to dive into social media, partially because it's the unknown and it seems like something that you just put a message out there, which is what a lot of businesses are doing. I see that they just are billboards posting things out on social media, but they're missing the social aspects of social media. So I think that it's so important also for businesses to really have conversation with people. If people are commenting, comment back, have a conversation, how do you, connect with a possible influencer? You start the conversation with them. And I think that that is so helpful, and demonstrating it and showing people, business owners specifically, this is what works, then they're more willing to give it a try. But I think that it just, a lot of it is intimidating because they think it's going to be so very time consuming also.
Absolutely. So, I think you make a good point there, that a lot of people forget that social media, the core element of social media is to be social and connect and kind of, actually have a conversation online. Tom, when you see apprehension, I know for a lot of people going from, they get their feet wet with a regular, maybe a post here, some pictures, things like that. How do you help the conversation transition in the video? I know a lot of small businesses are very apprehensive about, investing the time because they feel like it's really time consuming and, they don't have the technical know-how. But when you have that conversation with them, how do you kind of steer that conversation to ease their, their fears about video? And do you have any, tips and tricks that maybe some people can take right out of the gate and maybe do, a self-assessment of where they can go with their business when it comes to video?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I do get that video can be intimidating. I think probably one of the things that I'll tell clients of mine when I work with them about creating content is they don't, just because they're the business owner, right? Especially in a small business, maybe they're not comfortable being in front of a camera, and that's completely understandable. If you own, if you own a business and you're moving in logistics or something like that, like you don't necessarily, it's not in your job description to be comfortable in front of a camera, and that's okay. You don't have to be the face of your business. It's not mandatory that the person who owns the business also has to be the spokesperson for the business. So there are definitely options, and I always encourage people, if you're not comfortable in front of camera, great. Let's find a way around that. Like, that's not a problem that is unsolvable. That's an easily fixed problem. And then to the second part of your question, I think in the environment that we're in right now, where people are maybe in a position where they're trying harder to create some of their own content, I think the best tip that I could give for somebody doing that, besides spending some time, I mean, I could spend the next 3 hours just going through technical details about, tips and tricks of things they should try to do when filming a video with their iPhone or whatever they're using. But I would say do a deep dive. Like, there are a ton of tutorials online for how to make really good quality video with basic tools that everybody has, like a smartphone. And then the other side of that too is be honest about what you're doing. Your audience will forgive mistakes if you're honest about your skill level and that you're trying something new. They're not gonna look at it and say, well, I mean, come on, this is garbage. It doesn't look like Fellini directed this. Like, of course it doesn't. It's a moving a logistics company trying to make a video, and I'm just going to run with that example. But people will forgive you if you're honest and say, look, this is the first time I've ever used my phone to try to make a video, but I really want to talk to you guys about X, Y, and Z.
And people it's maintaining that, it maintains that human aspect too, which is just so awesome, and people can relate to it.
Yeah. But you cannot underestimate the value of honesty and how much people will let small things slide if you're just honest and transparent about what you're doing and why you're doing it that way.
I think today's day and age, I think that honesty and that unpolished look lets people know that you are genuine, and it gets to the why and it gets to the behind the scenes. Katy, Dwyer, when we're talking about content creation, do you have a favorite success story where you had a client that was a little bit apprehensive, with maybe, putting their best foot forward into the social domain, where you were able to help overcome those fears and really tie into a message that was successful? Do you have a favorite story?
Wow. I don't know that I have a favorite story. I would say that what generally tends to happen is that clients feel like they don't have enough to put out on social media, and they don't know what to possibly put there, and to Katy's point, they just think billboard. And what's always amazing to see is when we start working with someone and we put together editorial calendars, really planning out and talking about all the different types of content that could go out there, and then showing them at the end of the day, because the most important thing that you're doing when you're doing social is paying attention to what people like, because again, this is about branding and having that conversation and the engagement. And when they start to see the types of posts and content that their customers really like, and then they know, oh, that's what works, and then we can start changing it up a little bit, but repeating and formulating. And it's exciting to see when I do have one client actually who we worked with, and they went to a conference, and one of the higher ups at their franchise said to them, oh, we've been seeing that you've been really killing it on social now. And so, when people start to recognize that your customers, your audience, everyone's paying attention, that's when it's exciting, and it really does work.
And then I've also noticed, like, my clients will then come up with new ideas, and they're like so excited that then it's like, then there's so much content that they're like, oh, well, I took a picture of this today. You want to use that on social? And it just blossoms from there. Yeah. I think it's like getting through that first scary stage of they're not sure and they don't think there's enough, to being like, oh my gosh, there's this whole world and people like to see that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a piece. I'm a big data guy, so when I work with my interns and they're trying to, experiment and innovate, I always tell them, let's try it and see what happens, and then use the data to help steer additional, you know, either changes or iterations of what you're doing. Katie Haynes, how important is it to use the data that you're seeing with engagement when work, say you have that one client that's really excited and they have 100 different ideas. How do you kind of wrangle those thoughts down and let the data help steer those conversations?
Just exactly like you said, I let the data help steer the conversation. So there are so many resources that are out there that like can just show you what the engagement is per posts. And so you can see a trend when you look at that, at the numbers. I'm a numbers person too. I love spreadsheets. So I think that, making sure that you understand what analytics is and how to read the analytics, I think is so important for small business owners, especially as we're in this digital world of trying to communicate with everybody. Go into that back end insights of Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and see what's working and do more of what's working that gives you the results, and then do less of what isn't working. Like, make your job easier on yourself.
Definitely. I think following the numbers and the trends that are going on is key for anybody in marketing to try and see, a few years ago, everybody was saying that Instagram was, they're like, oh, that's cute. Now it's a powerhouse for marketing and, selling products and ideas and different things like that. So, Tom, my question to you is, what trends are you seeing right now in the video world that are affecting your business when it comes to either, positive, negative, or, where do you think this is going to be going, we'll just say in the next 6 months to a year when it comes to video?
So I think primarily the trend I'm seeing going forward is for more businesses to create branded episodic content. As we move further and further away from sort of traditional broadcast television and more into on-demand viewing and digital media consumption, I think there's already a lot of larger brands that are doing it. And I think it's important for smaller brands and local businesses to start thinking about ways to create value-added content, episodic content for their customer base, for their audience, for their communities, how whatever word you want to put on it. Because I think that's the best way for them to generate a couple of things. One, generate a perceived expertise in their field, right? So if you create episodic value-added content where you're giving away sort of tips and tricks or other kinds of content surrounding your given field, it helps establish you as an expert in that field. But then also it tends to be engaging because usually that content is driven by a passion, by the passion of the person behind it. So if it's the owner of a business, the founder of a business, maybe a leader within that organization who's really passionate about what they're doing, if you let them drive that content, it usually is pretty engaging because passion is contagious. So I think episodic content, like branded content for businesses that provides value to their communities, is the way forward for a lot of businesses, I think. And it also solves the other problem that we were just talking about in terms of creating content for social media. It's a great way to, you can take that episodic programming and maybe say release an episode once a week. But from that episode, you can then break out and repackage smaller pieces of that content across different platforms. So you can create a huge library of content and really be present on social media a lot more if you follow an approach like that. So I think that's probably a good way for businesses to be thinking about creating content going forward, with a heavy emphasis on that value-added proposition. I think that initial content that businesses create, and I think this is true even for a 30-second commercial, should be much more focused on giving than on asking.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's the big thing. A lot of people get hung up on that is, just standing on the soapbox and kind of yelling, hey, here's my wares, whatever that would be, from software to services.
Yeah.
Katy, Dwyer, I saw you nodding while Tom was talking there about, the idea of episodic content and different marketing trends. What do you see coming down the pike? Do you agree? Do you see, different things kind of coming into fruition as we move into this new era of marketing?
Yeah, well, what I was nodding my head about was just the idea of taking that episodic content and being able to create so much other content around it. Not just for social media, but the other thing people struggle with so much is creating new content for their websites. And video is really important to have on your website, and breaking pieces out for blog posts and case studies and portfolios or articles or whatever it is that you might be able to do. Having one video and then breaking it out into lots of different little tips and ideas or social posts or whatever platform you might be using, that's really key, because I think the one thing people struggle with most, especially when we're working with a client to build a website, is how do I keep the content fresh? And I have seen a lot of clients who are doing that, who are starting to really build on creating videos on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, just sharing expertise and making themselves the expert in their field.
That's definitely one thing I try, and when I teach different classes or people come in for advice at the chamber, I always use the phrase to document instead of create, because then it kind of gets them over that hurdle that they have to come up with all these new ideas. I think some of the highest rated work that I've done for different clients, either through the chamber or former marketing clients of mine, where it was more the behind the scenes of them actually showing what's going on behind closed doors, to actually show how the process of either the bakery or if it is a shampoo company, whatever it is, it's really that VIP access that kind of jumps to the forefront, where people like to have that vantage point to learn more about a company, especially in the things like organic and sustainability. They want to know where their products are coming from and who they're buying from. So Katy, Haynes, I know you do a lot of work with nonprofits. Do you notice that with a nonprofit when it comes to marketing, that there's any differences, or do you kind of reiterate the idea that there's more similarities in the marketing field when it comes to nonprofits? Is there anything that you would, kind of touch on when it comes to having a client in that kind of genre?
I think that there are a lot of similarities, but there's also so many differences. But I would like to just add on to the episodic content that you guys were talking about before, just that I think that consistency is so important. So if you decide that you're going to be creating a video or writing a blog or whatever it is that you're going to be doing, you're going to be spending a lot of time on, do it regularly. If you're going to be posting stuff on social media, if you're going to be, as you're updating your website, do it consistently so people know what to expect. But then also people will look forward to it. Oh, so Tom is going to, every single Monday, he's doing this at 10 o'clock. And so I can't wait for the next one because I missed last week or whatever, so that people know that you're going to be there and can look forward to it. But I think that for nonprofits, I think that a lot of times they think that their message should be more of asking for donations and asking for money and asking for sponsors, because that is so much of what nonprofits are doing. But I think that really making sure that you do maintain that human aspect of what your nonprofit is. Why did you start this? Why are you doing this? Who are you helping? And telling that story. And like you said, instead of creating, really, talking about it, talking about what it is that you're doing. And I think that as you do that, you're going to see that your content is going to be created right there in just your everyday, who you are and what you're doing. And then people are going to want to support your nonprofit because they care about who you are and what you're doing, because you care about it so much.
Absolutely. I think right now, obviously, the world is in a little bit of a crisis mode. So Tom, how important is it, and what kind of conversations are you having around the idea of staying top of mind? As Katy, both Katys, implied, was that getting your message out there in a consistent way is a perfect way to stay top of mind. How important is it right now, especially when everybody's migrating online, to be that consistent voice?
Yeah, I mean, right now is the most important time to be present digitally, to talk to your customers, to talk to your community, to let them know what you're doing, how you're coping with the pandemic and the crisis that we're all living through right now, and what you're doing to help your community, how they can rely on you in different ways than maybe they couldn't before, or new services you're offering or new things you're offering to try to help your community through this time. I think you should definitely, especially right now, have a focus on what you're doing to help. I think most businesses are in that mode. Most businesses that are still operating right now are very much in the mode of trying to help as much as possible in their local communities. And that's exactly what you should be telling people about. But now it's more important than ever. I think Facebook usage is up like 50% or something like that. Is the most recent statistic that I saw or that I was quoted. So yeah, I mean, if people were already spending, hours online a day on their devices, whether it be your computer, or your mobile device, they're spending even more time now. So it's much more important to now than it was even a couple of months ago to be present and to create video content and to get your messaging out there. But again, the emphasis right now especially has to be on giving rather than asking. Absolutely has to be.
Katy, Dwyer, any insights on the idea of top of mind and how you approach it?
Well, the piece that I think I've seen some mistakes made about recently from brands is the idea that that you want to make sure that you're sharing a message that's relevant to your audience. And yes, you want to be out on social, sending your emails, doing email marketing, updating content on your website. But I've seen brands try to stay top of mind by sharing. It's almost like information overload, sharing the same information that all the other brands are sharing just because they think that that's going to place them top of mind. One of my favorite quotes from a marketing guru, Seth Godin, is specific is brave. So you want to be specific about who you are, what your brand is, and who your audience is. And then whatever information you're sharing about what you're doing in these unprecedented times, or how you're helping, whether it's helping local businesses, helping the community, helping your customers, make sure that it's specific to your brand and your audience.
It's interesting. I think that's the one thing a lot of people forget is the way to be specific in a time like this. Katy, Haynes, messaging during a crisis, how are you handling those conversations when it comes to, a company? I know there's a lot of back and forth where companies are afraid to kind of ask for money and making it look insensitive versus the idea that both Tom and Katy were talking about is how are you helping? How are you working on balancing that messaging during a crisis for your clients?
The messaging between asking for money and then talking about what you're doing and how you're sharing?
Yeah, I think the big picture that I've seen with a lot of people that have reached out to the chamber is, I'm still trying to stay in business, and obviously having, a contribution to the community is a vital part of telling who you are and why you started. But when you're trying to work with messaging with a client that's maybe struggling right now in this crisis time, how are you helping them kind of navigate those waters?
Well, very much like Katy said about, making sure that they're telling the facts and that it's relevant. What is it that they're doing to help keep their customers safe? What is it that they're doing to maintain proper precautions right now? And how is it relevant to this time? And I think that just making sure that people know, okay, I'm a restaurant and I'm staying open, but this is more than just staying open. I'm making sure that my employees are safe. I'm making sure that you're safe. I'm doing all of these things. I'm only doing curbside. I'm doing, whatever it is that you are doing, depending on whatever type of business it is that you're running, but that you're keeping everyone safe, I think is the top of mind and top of concern for most people right now. But then also making sure that you're maintaining your, who you are and your standards and your vision and your values as your business while all of this is going on? Because while you're trying to maintain safety, you still are who you are and you still are running your business. And why are you still running your business now? Obviously, so you can stay afloat and make some money and pay your employees and pay the bills and all of this. But like, why? Like, are you helping the community? Are you feeding people? Like, what is it that you're doing that is helping, and why?
I think that'll be a big piece of every conversation, like I said, in the next few months on, what's going on now. So Tom, my question to you is, once we get through this, I know a lot of people have their eyes on June and, the summer months coming up. Where do you see the future of marketing going when it comes to branding and messaging? If you were to predict how our economy is shifting, where do you think the emphasis is going to be? And, where do you think marketing in general is going to change?
I don't know. I don't know that I can predict accurately where I think it's going to go. I could say where I hope it's going to go. And I think where I hope it goes is, I hope that one of the positive things that comes out of the crisis that we're living through right now is that businesses and brands start to approach their marketing and the way they communicate with their customers in a much more human way. I think one of the things that I come across is I often feel like the initial concepts and the initial messaging that I come across when talking to clients is very numbers driven in terms of like in the thought process. And what I mean by that is they're thinking of the customers as revenue and not as people. And I hope that my hope is that there will be a shift towards a more clear, better communication between businesses and people, between the people that run businesses or the people that run the organizations and the people who are their customers, that communication is more human to human rather than kind of treating it as if you're talking to numbers and you're just trying to get numbers through the door. And I think that's where a lot of people kind of miss on their messaging is they don't treat consumers as humans. They treat them as revenue.
Interesting. Yeah, I've seen that with a lot of different companies, and the term tone deaf has probably struck even some of the largest companies during good times. So Katy, Dwyer, same question to you. Where do you see, or how is your agency positioning itself looking forward in the next, say, 6 months to a year? How are you kind of strategizing right now and looking forward? What does marketing look like for you?
For me, I think moving forward, at least the best thing I can say is how I hope we'll be able to help our clients is in that communications piece moving forward, because I think that's what many brands are struggling with is how to talk about this. How do I continue to sell, essentially, because that's what, as businesses, that we are trying to sell ourselves, our product, and whatever that is. But how do you morally do that, in this environment? And so, it comes down to that messaging and the communication between the brand and the customer, and how that engagement is positive, how it's approached, how you do that in a way that keeps you relevant and top of mind, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, when we really don't know what the landscape is going to be. And I think, especially you mentioned the idea of, when do we open back up? When do you start letting customers back into your establishments, or, start holding events again, or any of that? How we approach that and how we message that, I think, is going to be incredibly important. And that's where I'm hoping that our business will be able to help our clients.
I could definitely see that, where a lot of people are trying to figure out, what does it mean to them as a business owner? And especially for those of us in the marketing field is, what does that mean for us as, a support staff for those businesses to help tell that story? Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I've gravitated towards during, hard times and, when a lot of pressure kind of comes down, I have a personal mantra that I feel, is important to me. And it's surround yourself with good people, smart people, remove obstacles, and get out of the way. that is something that I've used probably in the last 5 years to really, drive my ideas and different things forward, based on collaboration and innovation. So, Katie, Haynes, do you have a personal motto or sort of like a quote that you follow that you kind of share with the audience that kind of keeps things moving forward?
Actually, it's from Kung Fu Panda. I'm sure that somebody else probably said it. Felt like the past is history, the future is a mystery, so stay in the present because it's a gift, I think is what it is. So, like we don't know what's going to happen a month from now. We don't even really know like what they're going to announce tomorrow as far as like how things are going to be changing. And we know that like what happened before may have been successful, but things are constantly changing. So even though it worked before, it doesn't mean it's going to work now. So like what is working today? What is the message today? And also like live your life that way too, because that's how I live my life. Like stuff happened before. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? Today, we're all just like quarantined at home. So like, let's just live in the moment.
That's good. Words of wisdom from Kung Fu Panda. I like
Kung Fu Panda.
Kung Fu Panda. Tom, do you have any kind of mantras that you live by?
I don't have like a specific quote or mantra that I necessarily live by, but I think I have some core values that I try to live by. I try to be, open and honest about my capabilities, both in a positive and a negative way. So if I'm not capable of doing something, I'm just as honest about that as I am if I'm capable of doing something. I think that's important, kind of knowing your limitations and being honest about what you're capable of and what you're not. And, and I also try to give more than I get whenever I can. So I'm always open to people, asking me questions. I like to tell people to think of me as a resource. I try to put out a little bit more than I, is maybe reasonable sometimes, but I try to give more than I get. I truly believe that will pay off in the long run for myself and for the community that I'm a part of. So, I guess that's kind of my mantra.
Yeah, that'll work. That's I think in a time when people are struggling, the idea of being a resource is huge. I know that's how we kind of run the chamber, is that's our role, is to be an extension of the business team, right? So I think all of us here today definitely have that that kind of core value of trying to fill in those gaps with our expertise for companies that are really good at doing one thing, and then we kind of help support that mission. Katie, Dwyer, do you have something like that kind of spark that you use when you work with your clients that you kind of relay to them on how you move forward?
Right now, and it's funny with all the homeschooling, I get treated to my third graders' morning announcements every day, and their word of the month, which I've been really reflecting on, is resilience. And that's really right now, I think what we're trying to reflect back to our clients is that right now is a time to be resilient. And it's not about these things aren't happening to us. We just have to react to them in the most positive way that we can to stay resilient and to move forward, because this is a moment in time. It's not always going to be like this, and it's just about how do we respond and how do we move forward.
I think that's basically where we are. I think the idea of looking forward, being resilient, given more than you can get, and every day is a present. I think that wraps things up really well. I'd like to thank all three of you for spending time today to kind of share your expertise and your vision for marketing and what it looks like in the future. And I really appreciate this conversation. So thank you very much for attending today, and look forward to more episodes here with Pattern for Progress. And I would like to thank Katy Dwyer, Katie Haynes, and Tom Langan for their contributions today. So till next time, thanks a lot.